Okay, so you can see I have gone through and I have applied to every layer that color lookup adjustment. And I wanted to do that first before I adjusted the photos beneath because I wanted to see how my effects were going to do on my photo. I still, as you can see when you're looking at this, you can still see that this one and this one still need a little bit more adjustment. The rest of them are pretty good. This one might, it's a little bit off, but for the most part, it's pretty good for where I'm going. Okay, so as you can see over here, you can see all my layers that contain photos have associated with them that color lookup adjustment layer. The arrow pointing down is telling me that it's clipped to the layer below it. I have linked these together. If you decide for some reason that you want to move the layer in the stack, make sure, I'm holding down the shift key to make sure that I've got them both selected, that you are moving them together. Because if you move one or the other out of sequence, this is going to apply to the next layer down. Say 10 goes away. This is now going to apply to layer 9. And while if I just turn it off, the photo's gone, so this is not applying to anything but a white background, so it's not doing anything. If there were an image below it, you would see the double filter. So you would have this filter and this filter if layer 9 was underneath that spot. So you want to be really careful about that, because if you start moving your layers around without taking their clipping masks with, or clipped mask layer adjustments with them, it will make a mess and it'll be really hard to get it back in order. One thing I did do was I left these named simply in order in which I brought the photos in, so that I would have the number association. So that if for some reason I did that, I moved this layer without this layer, I could go back and hook them back up. I've also linked them, so hopefully that helps. Okay, so now there are multiple ways to do this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to start with this one because it's the most drastic. You can hold down Control on your computer and click, and all the layers that are beneath the cursor at the time that you clicked it will show you what's available. Now in Photoshop, you can really just click on the layer and it will at least take you to the top layer. But hold down Control, click, and you see those are the layers that are directly below my cursor. If I do it over here, whoops, you could see those are the layers. So I now know that I need layer 13. Okay, this is the layer that I want to make yet more adjustments to. So I'm going to come back to my create a new fill or adjustment layer, and there are different ways you can do this. As a photographer, I like to work with photo filters, and I'll show you what that does in case you want to do the same thing. Photo filters used to be things that we screwed to the front of our cameras to impact the film that we were exposing inside. Back when we shot film and there wasn't a digital, we had to, if we wanted to make an adjustment to how the light was coming through the camera and being recorded, we had to do that with filters. And so these still work the same way. And I could tell from years of having worked with this that what I wanted to do is, because this was too yellow, is I wanted to actually add a cooling filter. Now there are different cooling filters available, and you can already see that that would work. Not that one, but the technique. And the nice thing is, if none of the filters that are part of the series, that these are the ones that represent, that actually looks pretty good. That's the one, right? So the blue, I use this blue, that worked. But if any of those don't work, you can double click on color and pick an exact color to get what you need. And in this case, I'm going to say that's pretty good. Let's pull it down towards the cyan just a little bit. Oh, that's even better. Okay. So now I've got my custom color, and the density is how much am I applying. And I can just slide this until it looks pretty good. All right, so I now know that's right. It's not dark enough. So I'm just going to come here and let's try that. Let's see how that does. Oh. No, it's going in the opposite direction. All right, let's try making it lighter then. Oh, I've preserved the luminosity. Let me uncheck that. Okay, what that does is when you preserve the luminosity, it saves the luminosity underneath of the photo. And when I undid that, it actually gave me a better, there we go. That's it. That's what needed to happen. Okay, and you just make that adjustment until it looks right. So that's doing it with a photo filter. Another way you can do it, let's find another one that needs adjusting. This one, let's try this one. Control, layer 10, is that you can use the color balance. And that literally allows you to control the cyan, the red, the magenta, the green, the yellow, and the blue. Okay, now there are conflicting theories on whether you add more of the color you want, which in this case, you see as I do that, it's making the whole picture cyan, or whether you subtract the color you don't want. Actually, I'm the wrong slider. This is more of a blue. Yeah. And you can see what happens if I subtract yellow. Oops. By going more towards blue, sorry. So this is more of a subtraction additive. Let's uncheck that. Okay. And that is allowing me to make some slight adjustments in my photos. And that's for what I'm doing, this works really well. Now, there are other ones. Now, actually, let me show you something before I go there. Let's see what happens if I put the color balance on top of, and I like that better. Okay, so all I did was I went down here and I put the color balance after I did the color lookup. Because when I selected this initially and applied it to that photo, but I actually like it better on top. Let's see, same thing with 13. Let's see if we put that on top. No. Okay, so that's the nice thing. You can arrange all of these in the stack. And the good news is they're all locked together. Okay, so sometimes you just want to play around with that to see, yeah, that works better here. And this one works better here. Okay, so for me, this is pretty good. This is pretty much what I think I would like to work with. Okay, and so that is I've now adjusted my images for adjusting the color. There are other, let's say I wanted to do something else. There are other ways to make adjustments. One of the main things that people like to work with is curves. I'm not going to show that to you now because it's a little more complicated. Another one people like to work with is levels. Oops, that picked levels, not curves. Curves is this, and this one's a little more complicated to work with. And let me just show you quickly. You can control the curve, and you see, you see that it can control brightness, exposure, right? It's the same as if I was taking the photo and I underexposed it or overexposed it. So you can control your highlights up here, and then down here you can make an adjustment. And you can also make adjustments down here at the bottom to where the curve starts and where the curve stops. And you can keep going. And so it's this is much more, actually that's pretty cool. I like that. But it gets much more complicated. And so we're not going to work with that one yet. And I'm just going to take that out. Okay. This is just some basic, straightforward levels that you can work with. You can also, let me show you this. You can also, let's see which one's this one. 3. when you have applied an adjustment layer, you can also change its blending mode. Wow, if I really wanted to get into some... And as you see, you go through, you can make even more. That really like makes my skin look awful. I mean, that would really be taking it to the next level on mockery. That's actually kind of cool, but that wouldn't work for... I like that. That's interesting. Okay, so say I chose that. You can also control the opacity, so it's not quite so... That's kind of cool, because that's also taking it to the next level of making myself look as bad as I possibly could. All right, so let's undo that, because I liked the original normal. But you can make those kinds of combinations. And the way to get really good at this is to practice, to play with it, to see what it does. There will be information in the folder for this project that will tell you what each one of these blending modes does. And so that you know what happens when you start working with them, though the theory doesn't work as well as the practice. So I just, you know, I knew the theory when I started working with these. It just didn't click for me until I started playing with them. You know, so you can just go to the lookup, try different. That's kind of cool. That really, like, I really like that one though. All right, we'll see what happens in the next video. Anyway, so I'm going to end this one here and continue the next one with the next steps.